Hi, it's Nicole. I said in my Titus Andronicus video that I started reading Shakespeare about 2 years ago, and this month I came to Julius Caesar. I feel like I have officially reached the next level of my Shakespeare journey. I love this play in a different way from how I loved Much Ado About Nothing and Midsummer Night's Dream, for example. I got it almost instantly. That's what stands out most. I have always struggled with the Elizabethan language and to get the overall idea of the plot by reading a play script. With Julius Caesar, I found the language easier and I got the story immediately. I even spotted certain themes and keywords reading it the first time round. Another reason why I love it so much is that I watched a show in the theatre this weekend just past with a group of good friends. I will talk more about the various productions in the next video. It was just wonderful to be able to talk about it straight away afterwards. So the play, Julius Caesar, is about the events leading up to and the aftermath of the assassination of Julius Caesar. There's so much I'd like to mention. I'm going to make this into 2 videos so you don't have to sit here forever. In this first video, I'm going to look through big chunks of Act 1, what's happening, who are the characters, and what themes start to emerge. In the second video, I'll share some more thoughts on certain themes again, and I'll also introduce you to a couple of theatre productions of Julius Caesar. As you can see, my Julius Caesar is in the Oxford School Shakespeare edition from a charity shop. I compared 6 Shakespeare editions from various publishers in a video a few months ago. For now, I still very much preferred the Oxford School edition, and this might be the third reason why I love the play so much. We start Act 1, Scene 1 with a conflict. With Shakespeare, it's always a bit dizzying at the start of the play. There's no time to calmly introduce the characters. We always get thrown straight in and have to process the action, as well as get to know the characters simultaneously, which is hard work and can be intimidating. My tip is just to go with it and don't worry too much. Trust Shakespeare. If it's someone important, he'll make sure we know. Act 1, Scene 1 is a short scene, and the characters on the stage immediately remind me of the opening scene of another Roman play by Shakespeare, Coriolanus. A group of citizens or commoners are confronted by someone of a higher social status, asking them, basically, what do you think you are doing? Why does Shakespeare start the play with Act 1, Scene 1, where 2 tribunes scold a few tradesmen? The 2 tribunes don't appear much at all, but the citizens play a key role later on. I think Shakespeare wants to draw attention to a specific characteristic of the citizens. To be blunt, their fickleness and stupidity. The tribunes ask the tradesmen why they are not working, but instead give themselves a day of holiday. By the way, I love the idea of declaring a day holiday just because they want to. So the tradesmen answer, "But indeed, sir, we make holiday to see Caesar and to rejoice in his triumph." And the tribune says, "Wherefore rejoice? What conquest brings he home? What tributaries follow him to Rome to grace in captive bonds his chariot wheels? You blocks, you stones, you worse than senseless things. O you hard hearts, you cruel men of Rome, knew you not Pompey? Many a time and oft have you climbed up to walls and battlements, to towers and windows, yea to chimney tops, your infants in your arms, and there have sat the livelong day with patient expectation to see great Pompey pass the streets of Rome. And when you saw his chariot but appear, have you not made an universal shout, that Tiber trembled under her banks to hear the replication of your sounds, made in her concave shores? And do you now put on your best attire? And do you now call out a holiday? And do you now strew flowers in his way, that comes in triumph over Pompey's blood? So who's Pompey and what triumph is this? A little bit of historical context helps here if you're not familiar with it. Pompey, Crassus and Julius Caesar governed Rome together in the 1st century BC. After Crassus died, a civil war broke out between Pompey and Julius Caesar. Pompey and his sons were defeated, and the play opens with Caesar's return from the triumph over Pompey's blood. So the Tribune is basically saying, you guys were such big fans of Pompey not that long ago, and now Pompey is defeated and you turn out in your best outfit to celebrate Caesar as the hero. Have you got a stone for a heart? Have you got any sense of loyalty? As I said, the crowd plays a big part in the play, and this is the first display of their characteristic. They follow one person one moment, another person the next. They are crowd animals, not capable of thinking for themselves, and their opinions can easily get swayed back and forth. This crowd again reminds me of the crowd in Coriolanus. I would totally believe if this is the same violent and terrifying crowd, easily manipulated and would happily turn into a mob. Let's move on to Act 1, Scene 2. I love Act 1, Scene 2. There's so much to talk about. We get to see all the main characters here in one go. Again, potential information overload, but it's okay, don't worry. We get a glimpse of Caesar, who takes center stage, but for only a few seconds. He's on his way to the ceremonial games, where historically young men run naked through the city, and among whom, as we hear here, was Mark Antony. A soothsayer turns up briefly, warning Caesar of the Ides of March, which is the 15th of March. A few soothsayers or prophets feature in this play, popping on and off the stage and completely failing to do any good to Caesar. We spend most of the time with Brutus and Cassius in Act 1, Scene 2. A lot of themes of the play start to emerge. Caesar goes into the stadium or wherever to watch the games, so he goes off stage with everyone. We are left with Brutus and Cassius, who stay behind and have a fascinating conversation. Shakespeare often puts Brutus and Cassius next to each other and lets us compare them. The compare and contrast of the two become especially explicit and intense in Act 4. We see them together here for the first time. Brutus and Cassius are both senators, so politicians who have close contact with Caesar. What are they talking about? Cassius observes that Brutus looks a bit gloomy recently. Brutus explains that it's because he has a lot on his mind. Sorry, friends, for neglecting you a bit. What Cassius says next is one of the key ideas for the rest of the play, the idea of self-knowledge. Tell me, good Brutus, can you see your face? No, Cassius, for the eye sees not itself, but by reflection, by some other things. 'Tis just, and it is very much lamented, Brutus, that you have no such mirrors as will turn your hidden worthiness into your eye, that you might see your shadow, meaning your reflection. I have heard where many of the best respect in Rome, except immortal Caesar, speaking of Brutus and groaning underneath this age's yoke, have wished that noble Brutus had his eyes. Cassius asks Brutus, can you see your face? Brutus says, no, I can't see my face. Cassius takes it further to mean you can't see yourself correctly. What a shame, Brutus, you can't see your own value. I have heard many very prominent people in Rome talking about you. They are not happy about the oppression from Caesar at the moment, and they wish Brutus sees things their way. Into what dangers would you lead me, Cassius, that you would have me seek into myself for that which is not in me? Therefore, good Brutus, be prepared to hear. And since you know you cannot see yourself so well as by reflection, I, your glass, will modestly discover to yourself that of yourself which you yet know not of. You cannot see yourself or your value. You do not know who you truly are. I, Cassius, can see, and let me show you who you truly are, as clearly and as truthfully, like a mirror. Notice how Cassius repeats the words reflection, mirror, and glass to emphasize the impartiality of his action. Cassius sets himself up as a mirror, but does he give a true reflection? He says, I, your glass, all modestly discover to yourself. I will reveal to you yourself without any exaggeration. I am not making you look better than you are. I am being completely truthful, like a mirror. But Cassius is not a mirror. He's not impartial. Cassius is flattering Brutus, and he's not doing it for fun. We see at the end of this scene, Cassius has an agenda. Brutus is very alert. He senses that Cassius is leading him into danger. Does Brutus know himself? Has he now come to see himself through Cassius' eyes? Will he have the self-knowledge to see through Cassius' flattery and impure motives? The next key idea, I call it fear or love. I give credit to a song called Louder Than Words from a recent film, Tick Tick Boom. The song goes, fear or love, baby, don't say the answer. Actions speak louder than words. It's a good film. Some actions of the characters are done out of fear, while others are done for love. Here's one of the first examples where fear and love are mentioned together. Continue with Brutus and Cassius' conversation. This is the famous event in history where Caesar was offered a crown 3 times, and he rejected it 3 times, and people cheered 3 times. What means this shouting? I do fear the people choose Caesar for their king. Do you fear it? Then must I think you would not have it so. I would not, Cassius, yet I love him well. The assassination of Caesar is motivated by fear. Brutus fears that Caesar has become too powerful and a threat to liberty and freedom and the Republic. But has Caesar actually become a threat? We'll hopefully dig into this a bit more in the next video. The next key idea is honor. I've read 3 out of 4 Roman plays by Shakespeare so far, and honor is a central concept in all 3. But generally speaking, it feels like Shakespeare doesn't have a very high opinion of honor. It often results in blind and unreasonable actions, and people who hold on to honor like dear life often have a tragic end. What is it that you would impart to me? If it be aught toward the general good, set honor in one eye and death in the other, and I will look on both indifferently. For let the gods so speed me as I love the name of honor more than I fear death. This is the first time honor appears in the play, and it's already tightly bound together with death. Brutus prophesies his own end. He will die for the good of the public and for honor. But does his death result in honor or general good? Cassius gives a long speech about honor next, stating the case that there is nothing special about Caesar. He is physically weak, he gets sick, he's just like any other human being. Why do we give him all the honor and glory? Just to say it here quickly, in Mark Antony's amazing speech in Act 3, he uses weakness as an argument for Caesar rather than a negative thing against him. We'll look at that hopefully in the next video. Ye gods, it does amaze me, a man of such a feeble temper should so get the start of the majestic world and bear the palm alone. At this point, there is a second cheer from the people, and Brutus says, another general shout. I do believe that these applauses are for some new honors that are heaped on Caesar. You can hear from his voice that he's really uncomfortable that people love and praise Caesar. So after arguing that Caesar is just a mere mortal, Cassius now argues that the rest of them are too easily mastered. Why, man, he doth bestride the narrow world like a colossus, and we petty men walk under his huge legs and peep about to find ourselves dishonourable graves. Men at some time are masters of their fates. The fault, dear Brutus, is not in our stars, but in ourselves, that we are underlings. Therefore, rise up. After hearing this argument, Brutus promises to think about it. After hearing the same argument, Casca, in Act 1, Scene 3, immediately jumps on board with the conspirators. Then Cassius does a curious little comparison between Brutus and Caesar's names, which really reminds me of Julia's meditation, What's in the Name, when she has her heartbreak over Romeo and her own family name. Soon after that, Caesar returns from the games. In my imagination, we have two groups of people on stage. On one side, we have Brutus and Cassius. On the other side, we have Caesar and Mark Antony and the rest. It's really interesting. The two groups don't talk to each other, but they observe each other and make comments, like shooting arrows, as if they were watching a show and making comments on the characters for the audience. Brutus comments on how Caesar, his wife, and Cicero are all looking very ill and angry. This is an example of Shakespeare's embedded stage directions for the actors to look ill and angry. Caesar, in turn, comments how Cassius looks like a vulture. Caesar's comment on Cassius is pointed and funny. This speech of Caesar is partly historically accurate, as in an actual quote of Julius Caesar, and partly Shakespeare's genius interpretation of human nature. I will let you guess which is which. Let me have men about me that are fat, sleek-headed men, and such as sleep o' nights. Yond Cassius has a lean and hungry look. He thinks too much. Such men are dangerous. Fear him not, Caesar. He's not dangerous. He's a noble Roman and well given. Would he were fatter, but I fear him not. Yet if my name were liable to fear, I do not know the man I should avoid so soon as that spare Cassius. He reads much, he is a great observer, and he looks quite through the deeds of man. He loves no plays, as thou dost, Antony. He hears no music. Seldom he smiles, and smiles in such a sort as if he mocked himself and scorned his spirit that could be moved to smile at anything. Such men as he be never at heart's ease, whilst they behold a greater than themselves, and therefore are they very dangerous. Notice the list of symptoms of a power-hungry and dangerous man according to Caesar. He thinks too much, he reads too much, he observes and looks through people, he loves no play and no music in a play. Shakespeare's sense of humor. He doesn't smile and doesn't approve other people smile or laugh either. He cannot cope with anyone greater than himself. After his or Shakespeare's commentary on Killjoy, Caesar leaves the stage swiftly with a surprising little detail in a passing comment to Mark Antony. Come on my right hand, for this ear is deaf, and tell me truly what thou thinkst of him. My book says this detail is Shakespeare's own invention. I've been thinking about it and I can't think of why he'd invent a detail like this, but I dare not think too hard, lest I become too much like Cassius and Shakespeare would disapprove. Two interesting things about the location of this conversation. This famous scene in history, how Caesar refused the crown 3 times, is retold rather than acted out. And it's not retold by Brutus and Cassius to us, it's retold by Casca to Brutus and Cassius and to us. We are twice removed from the actual event. Why does Shakespeare make this decision? I think, firstly, Caesar is really not the main focus. Shakespeare doesn't put him on the stage very much, and he dies in Act 3. Instead, Shakespeare wants us to see people's reactions to Caesar. What do they say about him? How do they feel about him? What would they do with their knowledge and feeling? Secondly, Brutus and Cassius spend the whole of Act 1, Scene 2 talking about Caesar behind his back while listening to the goings-on outside the door. Later on, listening to Casca, they don't see things with their own eyes. They only hear things and base their judgment on hearsay and assumptions. Do they really know Caesar when they don't even see him? Does this say something about the soundness of their reasoning and decision to murder Caesar? I'm going to abruptly stop here for now. Come back for the second episode of Nicole's commentary on Julius Caesar. For now, here's the playlist with all my Shakespeare videos in one place. Enjoy. That's all for today. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in my next one.